Facebook, Twitter, Google are hardly friends of conservatives, but I use them all. But its own workers accuse Facebook of suppressing conservative news from its list of trending stories. Very interesting. Twitter employees have allegedly admitted to censoring and banning conservatives. And studies show Google's algorithms produce search results favoring Democrats and other liberals. How shocking. Now Facebook reportedly plans to put cameras and microphones in your home in one handy new device. No thanks. What could possibly go wrong? For answers, let's go to Steve Hilton, Fox News host of The Next Revolution with Steve Hilton. He's in Silicon Valley and in New York. Kristen Ruby, who is president of the Ruby Media Group. All right, Kristen, let's start with you. Why should we not be concerned that, let's start with the issue of fact-checking conservative news sites and not fact-checking more liberal news sites. Daily Caller is subjected to routinely fact-checking and context comments by Twitter, and that's done regularly. That's actually, that's the Google look. And yet Vox and other more liberal sites don't actually get that treatment. Is that fair?
Do I think it's fair? Absolutely not. So I think we should be concerned about this. However, I think this is really a case of what happens when you have smaller startups with not a plan, really, to think about becoming some of the largest corporations in the world, right? And so I think a lot of this is actually missteps and lack of planning. I don't disagree that, yes, they are actually doing this, but I do think that at this point, these are advertising revenue-dependent sites. So people have the power to actually cut off and stop advertising with these sites instead of just tweeting about it.
But wait a second, Ruby, the problem is if, for instance, Google, if they skew the analytics to hurt conservative media, that hurts conservative media bottom line as well, does it not? I mean, that hurts their ad revenue because the analytics don't match the traffic on the site. That's the concern I think a lot of the conservative sites have here, and that seems just patently unfair. Very quickly, then I want to go to Steve.
I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing on this point. I think it is unfair, and I think they have to get their act together very quickly. And I think consumers really have the power to change this by cutting off ad revenue for them, basically.
Well, I mean, it's Google. I don't know if you're going to cut off Google. But, Steve, on this particular issue, I've seen it. I've seen this happen. We know lots of people on Twitter who are banned because they have conservative views that are provocative. But, my goodness, what on Twitter isn't provocative these days? Look at my Twitter feed sometime. What should we think about this?
I think we should be really, really concerned, Laura. And before I dive into that, I just want to say it's my first time joining you. I want to say how much I love your show. I watch every night. You are a great champion for populism. And this is a real populist issue because this is about the people versus the powerful. And there's nothing more powerful these days than these tech companies. And the reason we should be frightened, there's two reasons, basically. First of all, exactly as you said, they want us to put our whole lives in their hands, to show up to our homes in their self-driving cars, walk up to the front door, and facial recognition software will open the door. We could throw away the boring old keys, walk into the kitchen, and the smart fridge will have ordered your groceries, and you stick it in the smart oven. All of that personal information, deeply personal data, who owns that? Not us. They own it. And what's going to happen with it? You don't know, because the latest thing they've told us is that every single chip in every single computer in the world is actually got a design flaw, which means it can be hacked by anyone. But there's the ideological problem too. They hide. That's right, and they hide behind this notion of the algorithm that does all this in a neutral, unbiased way. But the truth is, as anyone who knows about these tech companies really understands, is that the algorithms are written by people. And the people who work for these companies are overwhelmingly liberal. And that's a real problem because they're designing these systems that run so much of our lives with an ideological bias. And it's worse even than that, because they're not just liberal, they're liberal hypocrites too. Because while they politically shovel money into the pockets of Democrats who obviously want to raise taxes and increase regulations, they themselves, these tech companies, do all they can to avoid paying taxes, and they spend millions of dollars on lobbyists to avoid being regulated. So they want everyone else to pay taxes, just not them, and they want other industries to be regulated, just not theirs. It's really dangerous, and we've got to fight back.
The best is when Mark Zuckerberg, buys all the properties around his house and makes sure that he has a perimeter. So he he has a lot of security. Like, what's the difference, by the way, between breaking and entering, the house and breaking and entering the country? But that's not how it works, guys. Great segment. And by the way.